Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast with me, Ben Talon. I'm a storyteller helping people make an impact through illustration, creative coaching, writing, and a lifelong love of creativity, a fundamental pillar of human happiness. And now I bring my 20 years experience to you, the listener, through ongoing personal exploration and the shared experiences of others. Through interviews with thought leaders in and beyond the creative industry and personal inquiry, I'm here to help you maximise the human in your creativity to thrive in the age of automation. The show has been supported from day one by Illustration X, a leading illustration agency representing a shining global roster of illustrators and animators over at illustrationx.com. Foilco, suppliers of the world's widest range of stamping foil shades and finishes to the print industry. Foilco were the very first foil company to set up a foil recovery scheme and be certified as zero foil to landfill compliant. Paradiso Institute is a non-profit cultural organisation built around a simple idea: creative lives require responsibility. Leadership and endurance and care for the body and mind shape the work more than talent ever will. They bring together people across borders and generations who are willing to commit to depth and long-term contribution. They value real encounters, shared experience, and giving back to the communities that formed them. Their attention stays on the work that holds over time. And please head to ui.org.ua to see the work of the Ukrainian Institute, who need your help to amplify the voices of the brave Ukrainian creative community during this brutal time of war. The music for the show, as ever, is by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on all good streaming services. For creativity resources for all budgets, from one-to-one and group coaching with me, to the reading list, podcast archive and creativity diary, head to thecreativecondition.com.
But if I would have talked myself out of all these opportunities, I would have not able to take them on and achieve them and move forward in life. So I tell people, being in the comfort zone could be the most dangerous place you can be in for your future, for your career, for your love life, for whatever you're trying to attain in life.
Today I'm joined by Deyson Ortiz. Deyson has quite the story, and we're having a deep conversation about confidence. Owning your story, what does that look like? Deyson helps to coach people in their confidence, to be more confident on camera, to present themselves, to share their story with the world in a way that illuminates the right path ahead, and we could all do with a bit of that. So this is the Creative Condition. How are you doing, guys? My name is Ben Talon. I'm the Creative Condition founder, host of the Creative Condition podcast, coach, illustrator, writer, among many other things. I am passionate about creativity. I like to help you elevate your human creativity in the age of automation. Now, story has become quite the theme in the past few episodes in my work in general. I'm doing more story coaching and helping people to write talks. So I recently worked with PJ Richardson on his fantastic new talk. Don't ask for permission. Don't wait for permission. It was a wonderful experience working with PJ. We formed a narrative arc across the whole talk. So he had the broad strokes of what he wanted to do, what he wanted to say, some of the stories he wanted to tell. But as we opened up our conversation and it got more intimate, PJ revealed a whole host of stories that he'd either overlooked, underestimated as powerful drivers of his why, his values, why he's doing what he does, where he wants to take that, and what he wants to do for the industry in general to give back and to help creativity at large. Because we share that cause, and that's why I do this work, and it's been a real buzz. I'm starting with a new client tomorrow on that as well. So story has really become a fulcrum in all of what I do, because I realised after about 18 years of being in this game that I'm telling stories. I'm a storyteller across all kinds of different mediums, visual communicator as an illustrator, as an artist, telling stories with others in the coaching practice, helping them to attune to their story and to tell the right story moving forward and to live in that story, to become the author of their own life. Writing stories, fiction, non-fiction, long form, short form, podcasting, telling stories here in an audio capacity. I love it. It's what I do. And at the heart of all this is my hometown, my origins. You know, I grew up in a town that I always tell you guys, I had a drunk person term as one giant Star Wars bar. That is at the core of my philosophy as a coach, as an artist, as the way I live my life, because I've landed on this thing which is affectionate curiosity. I love everyone's stories. This morning I was buying eggs on the market at 10 to 9 with a dog, And the old bloke who works there, I wanted to ask him about his story. I grew up on market stalls, just hovering as a teenager in Leeds Market, Huddersfield, Keighley, where I'm from in West Yorkshire. And it's just full of these characters who've got wisdom to share, who've got a comment to pass, who've got a lived story. And I always wanted to amplify those stories in some way, but never had the way to do that as a kid. So I would just bathe in their anecdotes and their behaviours with intrigue. And it's something that's always been very natural to me. And I'm a big believer that if you can find your story, if you can tap into that, if you can understand why you're drawn to the things that you're drawn to, why you've had the struggles you've had in life, the battles, why you carry the values that you have, then it starts to give you something you can hold on to as you move forward in this very uncertain world, this historically uncertain industry as a creator. I think that when you start to trust the story and all of it, the warts, the absurdities, the wonder and the wounds of all of it, then you're winning, because nothing out there can affect you when you're living that story. Because even the circumstances out there which are troubling, there's wildfires at the moment. I always talk about the environment because it's crucial. I think we all need to pay attention and contribute our cause to challenging this, the climate crisis and the effect it's having on us all. But whether it's that, whether it's the wars in the world, whether it's the economics, we live in a wildly uncertain world. It was always that way. It continues to be so, maybe more than ever. But I think when you've got your story, you can factor those things in and form a narrative that at least enables you to form a shield. Even better, use your imagination to find your fight within that cause. And it gives you a better reason to get out of bed in the morning and to be less angry and more curious. So that's what I'm driving at, and that's why I wanted to bring Deyson Ortiz on board today to talk about his story. He's got a brilliant, beautiful story about his father that he's going to share with us, about why not being shy was one of the childhood lessons that Deyson was taught by his father, and the balance of that with his mother, a more sensitive soul by the sounds of it. It's a truly beautiful story. I met Deyson through one of the sponsors of the show, the Paradiso Institute. We were doing some coaching training with Marco Fan, one of the directors of the Paradiso, and I really liked Deyson's energy, and I think that was reciprocated, and we had a few breakaway chats outside of the coaching lessons. And I asked Deyson if he'd like to come on the show because I loved his story and his energy so much. So you're going to get a blast of that today. I would love your feedback. Get that to me, ben@bentalon.com. If you want help with your story, well, have a look at what Deyson's doing. Have a look at what I'm doing at thecreativecondition.com. Find the right fit for you. Reach out and have a conversation, because the joy of coaching is you have someone who can understand your story, see it clearer than you, because we all live in very muddled, busy brains in this world. And I know firsthand, by having these conversations externally with other people, you get an incredibly fresh perspective that just opens things up to you. That is the value of coaching. A coach might be a thought partner. It might be someone who can unpick certain issues in your story. They can give you ideas and suggestions according to what you give them in an honest conversation that might take 20 years for you to arrive at. That's the love of it. In the same way that therapy works on a mental health and well-being level, coaching works on a creativity and understanding yourself, your story level. And that's why I love the work so much, because it's incredibly fulfilling. So give us a shout, respectively. Look up what we do. I would love to do my pit stop session with you. I would love to take you down my story coaching path. Look at those wounds and those wonders and help to help you get that straight. If you want to write a book, if you want to write a talk, it works on that level. If you just want to write more accurate content, then that's what the story coaching is about. Equally, if you don't want to put any of that stuff out there externally, but you want to get a clearer picture of your direction, there's a very private offer I've got called The Internal, where we would work together on a step-by-step program around your schedule, and we would write your story. We will renegotiate the story you've been telling yourself and point you in a better direction. So give me a shout. ben@bentalon.com. I'd love to hear from you. Check out the website, thecreativecondition.com. That is enough of the business. Go back and listen to previous episodes, recent ones, brilliant with Kendra Valentine, with Tina Rapp, with Austin Kleon on the 300th episode, and of course all the episodes in between where I give you some reflections and some ponderings and musings on creativity and certain specific topics on autonomous episodes. Please do take a second to rate, review, or subscribe to the show. It means a lot. It's really, really helpful. But without further ado, Mr. Deyson Ortiz.
Well, I've been in the video industry for over 30 years, and I've done everything from video editing, animation, producing, directing, everything. Especially being from Florida, in that time, back when I got into the industry, we had to do it all because there was not that many studios to go to. So the more we learned, the better it was for our clients. And that's what I've done for over 30 years. And then one day on LinkedIn, this is about 2 years ago, I put out a LinkedIn post asking people where they were stuck on making videos. And I was expecting answers such as what camera should I use? What editing software should I use? What tricks, techniques for editing better videos, things like that. And the number one challenge people were having were they couldn't hit record on their camera. And there was actually a few people that were reaching out about that. And one person in particular had a message, had a story to share, wanted to teach and help people in the industry that he does, but just couldn't record on camera. As soon as he hit record, he stuttered, he froze, he blinked a lot. It just his mind went blank. So I said, hey, let me see if I can help you. Let me see what I can do. I'm usually always that kind of guy. It's like I say yes and figure it out along the way. And we got on a call. We spent about an hour and a half, and at the end, we recorded a message and I recorded a video. And the first video was him pretty much telling his audience the challenge he's having recording on camera and how his goal is to improve and get over that. And it was a great video because he put it up on LinkedIn and people were just loving it. They were just rooting for him. They were so proud of him. And it was a really great video. And he told me afterwards, and it was kind of emotional. He told me afterwards that he never thought he could do it. He's signed up for workshops, training seminars, training, one-on-one coaching, and nobody could help him. He spent thousands of dollars. And he said that 1 hour and a half where I was just like, hey, let's see if we can figure something out. He was just blown away. He's been putting up testimonials. He put up testimonials, setting words of praise, for the help I was able to do. And our mentor, Marco Fan, saw that. And he's like, Deyson, I think you have something there. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, this is something a lot of people need. And I didn't think much about it because I was very fortunate to have a father that was very strong on being confident and not being shy. His belief from very young, he started his world of the real world at the age of 12. He ran away from home and started working on his own at the age of 12. So he knew the importance of not being shy. So that's one thing he really tried to teach me is not to be shy from a young age. So I didn't see it as a big deal, but after talking to Marco and talking to other people, I realized that a lot of people have that challenge, especially recording on camera. So ever since those 2 years, I've been helping more and more people. And I still do everything else I do, but I just something I incorporated and something I'm paying a lot more attention to and helping people tell their story. And now I've realized after thinking about what is it that I do, and I was always trying to find that core message. Because when people ask me, it's like, oh, I'm editing, directing, everything. It's really about the story. And I realized that everything we do, us creatives, is about the story. It could be music videos, commercials, infomercials, anything. It's all about the story. And I realized that we're just storytellers with just different tools and more advanced tools, but the heart of it is the story. So yeah.
Story is, I mean, to strip it right back, story is what separates us from the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
It's how humans, I believe the number is around 150 people that you can have a significant relationship with. Beyond that, you need a myth, you need a mantra, you need something, a story to bind
Mm.
those bigger numbers. That's why, let's say, agencies like, to pick one out of the hat, TBWA, I think they have about 11,000 employees across the world.
Wow.
How do you bind that many people to a common belief system? I think they're known as the disruption agency. That's their guiding principle. So you need that. That's a story in a word.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, we don't realize, but I know people say the oldest profession is something else, but I really believe it's storytelling. It's from the cave paintings to the person that went from town to town spreading the story. It could be a story of good news or what's going on or fairy tales or myth stories. And it's the thing that united humanity and it's always has and always will be. I think it's very
Mm.
important for us. So ever since I made that discovery, it made my life so much easier because now it's like, what's the story? And then from there, whatever we need to create to tell that story and share that story.
Is the tapping into the story, is that what you used in that hour and a half where you helped that person? Because that's quite a profound shift when, when that person had been doing all the other things you mentioned, the courses, the webinars and everything else. Well, what was it in that hour and a half that you switched on in that person?
Well, I realized looking back at that session, it was just really paying attention. I've always been a really good at being, Marco says, empathetic as far as paying attention and listening. And during that time, I noticed, I'm like, well, it's not the camera. The camera is not the issue because he's talking to me right now. We had a Zoom call. So it's not the camera. It's just being by yourself. And I realize in helping a lot, I've been able to help a lot of people building this new offer that I give my clients. I've realized that talking on camera, especially by yourself, is you're battling against your worst enemy, which is yourself. Our imagination just starts creeping up and we start imagining the worst things. There's a billion people watching this video. My high school bullies are watching this video. Everything that can you imagine, he just jumps in trying to attack and keep you from telling your story. And just watching him and seeing that it's not the camera, it's when we're by ourselves, especially when we're by ourselves recording. And I think I tell everybody out there, if you want to get over stage fright, if you want to build some confidence, if you want to be more self-confidence, I think camera is the most powerful tool because it's very accessible. Everybody has a camera. And two, to get on stage, it's a lot more work. You have to find a stage, get the audience, have people come in. It's a lot of setup. But with the camera, you can do it at any time and you can share your story. And it's a starting point that eventually can lead to being on stage if you have a good enough story or a story that people want to hear. And you build onto it. And I've been seeing people doing this, recording on camera, and it actually helps them build their confidence a lot quicker because they're battling against the biggest enemy, which, like I said before, is ourselves.
Yeah, and I suppose that's where story comes in because if you're telling yourself the right story, if you're carrying around the story framed as it should be, as opposed to what I think most people are carrying around, which is at best a warped or fragmented version of a story, and in worst case scenarios, either no story at all or a complete falsehood, then you operate through the lens of that story, do you not?
I had somebody I was talking to, and funny, interesting person, really wise in the industry. But as soon as we hit record, I'm like, okay, we're going to start recording now to see how you do. It's like they changed. And I realized in having conversations, they had a business persona. And I was like, that's not, that worked back in the day but nowadays we want to see who you really are. We want that person that your family's having dinner with, that your friends are hanging out with, funny, silly, just you. And I realize that we do have different personas, and when we turn that camera on, we try to be something else, trying to be what people we think people expect of us. But in reality, what people really want is the human side, not the fake side. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I really believe that and that happened to me too. It was funny stories that once I started helping people, I realized that I have to get on camera. And I always hated being on camera. I mean, I used to dance, I used to perform, but with camera, I don't know why. I hated being on camera. I hated the sound of my voice. When I used to produce or direct and I have the footage afterwards and I hear myself, it was cringe. I just didn't like hearing the sound of my voice. But I realized that if I'm going to help people, I'm going to ask people to get on camera, I have to do it myself. So I started doing consistent videos just to challenge myself. And the first few videos were just, recording 20 times and editing it. And oh, I said, let me delete that and B-roll to try to cover myself up and everything, every trick we editors know to just cover up whatever we did. But eventually I got to a point that I was posting a video a day. And I did that because I realized that if I did it once a week and I missed that day, it just turned into 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. And then I lost the momentum. But doing it every day just really got me into the habit a lot quicker. And I learned over time that it just became easier. I got rid of the B-roll. I got rid of the editing. I got to a point that I would just record the video, snip out the beginning and the end, and a little pause before record and after record, and just upload it. And I wouldn't even watch it. I would watch it after I post it. It is a piece of advice I give people, especially when you're starting, is just to upload it and then watch it after you posted it because there's a less chance that you're going to take it down, delete it, and start all over again. You add more friction to it. But I realized that the things we don't like, for example, my first videos, I used to say all the time and like and those filler words. And I didn't like those. As an editor, we always chop those out. But watching these videos, I self-program myself not to do it in future videos because I didn't want to take them down. But it reinforced that don't do it next time. In the future videos, I'll fix it. So it's a great, I recommend everybody that wants to build confidence, wants to do self-improvement, is to start doing these videos like a daily journal. No editing, no sound effects, nothing, just straight talk to the camera, share their story. The more real your story is, the better the struggles. And some people might say they don't have a story, but I tell people, I push back saying the best stories are the ones that are in the process of being made, the journey, because people get to jump on board and see how this journey ends up. I want to make $1 million, or I want to build my own studio, or whatever that dream might be. More people are probably going to want to jump on to be part of it and experience your journey.
Yeah, and to your point about the imperfections, being prepared to, to go down with the ship for that not to work out, because again, all the many of the best stories started trying to be something else, and then there was this offshoot somewhere or this twist in the tail that led to something even better. And so I think it's once you kind of break through that fear and think, okay, well, I'm setting out to do this, I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to voice that, but it might not work, and that's going to be an equally compelling story. So let's just go for it and find out. Then I think something we surrender. There's a power in surrender.
And those make the best stories. I mean, we think back, the stories that lasted forever is the ones that had the biggest struggle.
Hmm.
And the things
Oh,
we don't
always.
want to share, that's actually what makes the story most interesting. It's that struggle, it's overcoming your fear, overcoming hurdles, paying off debt, whatever it might be. That's what makes the stories interesting. And sometimes we see imperfections. I had somebody else that I was helping, and they tried really hard to suppress their laughter. I was like, why do you do that? And they just thought, it was made them look silly. I'm like, no, that's what makes you human. It's what makes people laugh on their end, watching someone else laugh. It's like, don't hide those things we call imperfections, because a lot of times those are the things that makes us human and makes us unique.
Yeah. Yeah. To use maybe the biggest super cliched word out there, they're superpowers, aren't they? They're the things
Hmm.
that make you you. And I was reading somewhere among your content before when I was preparing for this interview, there is only one you. Just is, and that's so good because it's so true. And when you realize that and recognize that each and every one of us has a unique and powerful story, that's great because you want to become the author of that story.
Well, somebody once said it that was, I think we come up with a lot of excuses not to do it because we know it's good. We already know it's been proven that the more people share their story, the more people can connect with you. But a lot of times we start coming up with procrastination. I need the perfect background. I need the perfect lights. I need this. I need that. And we come up with a lot of procrastination. And one that I heard was that there's too much noise out there. Why should I add to the noise? And my pushback is just like radio stations. There's hundreds or even more now with the internet. But once a person finds that channel that they love, they're going to come back to that channel. They're going to push the noise aside. And your voice, your story could be that channel that somebody else can relate to because this person has a lot of similarities to what I'm going through, or their voice, or their background, or their upbringing, whatever. For some reason, we don't know what it might be, but that person's going to connect with your story and you could actually help people out there. So don't look at it as noise, just you have a frequency, you have a station or whatever you want to call it, and the right people are going to find you. And sometimes it's not even about people finding you, it's about building that confidence, sharing your story, and helping yourself grow.
That's superbly put. You have a frequency. Love that. Yeah, that really illustrates it. Yeah. Gives you, your own bandwidth. I love that. I'd love just to back up a little bit because I know you've shared it with me in private, your dad's story, but would you mind sharing that again? Because I think it's a beautiful story and it leads me into what I'd then like to talk about, which is kind of where your own confidence comes from and how that looked in younger years.
Yeah, well, the story of my dad, it depends who you ask. Some people say it was nine, some people say it was 10, 12. So I did 12 just because it just sounds more realistic. But back then, my dad was, when he was really young, he didn't wear shoes. He was really poor, selling gum on the streets. And something happened in the household and the argument, whatever, he ran away and he started living life on his own, building, just start building. And he was always like just very one of the strongest men I ever met, carpenter, hardworking. Like he had all these lessons in life about, showing up on time means showing up early. He was that kind of old school philosophy. But the biggest one that I always like to bring up is his belief on not being shy. And when he, he first came, the story I like to share about my dad is when he came to this country for the first time, being that he was a carpenter, they gave him like, I think it was a 4-year visa because it was a trade at that time. So he got to this country. He got off the plane. He showed up at night. He arrived at nighttime. The next morning, the whole family said, Jose, stay home, relax. You had a long flight. Stay home, relax. We're going to go to work. When we come home, we're going to go through the newspaper and we'll find you a job. And he's like, fine, no worries, no problem. So everybody left. And my dad, being my dad, he just left as well and just started walking. And he had a way of not getting lost. He had his way, just follow one street straight down. And if you get too far, you just go back. And he came across, I think it was a lumber shop or a hardware shop. I think back then they were called lumber shops. And he was just helping people put things into their cars, doors, pieces of wood, whatever they had. And in Spanish, if they didn't speak English, they yo carpintero, that's how you'll say it. And eventually enough people that somebody said, hey, I need a carpenter, come with me. So he went to work with them. He went to go work with them and he came home. The person dropped him off. My family's like, who's this? Where's, oh, they were worried. What happened to Jose? They came home. Where's Jose? Where did Jose go? They're thinking the worst. And they look at the window. My dad's getting dropped off by the owner of the company. And my dad shows up. He asked the gentleman to stop by a store to buy my mom a hair dryer because my mom didn't have one. So he bought a hair dryer, came home with cash from getting paid for that date. He earned more money than my whole family did put together. And it was just a perfect example that if my dad would have been like, oh, let me just stay home, let me just, but that's his mentality. He was just one of those, didn't let any excuse stop him from doing what he wanted to do. And he was always like that. He just do it, he just figure it out and do it as he goes. So I just think that's one of the great stories. And he's got tons of other stories, but that's one of my favorite that just, he had a job the day after.
It's incredible, and it makes me think of something that Marco, to go back to Marco, said, which is, I think it was in one of his articles that he wrote on LinkedIn, and he said, there's a common misconception that confidence comes before action. And I think your dad's story just illustrates how untrue that is and how kind of destructive that can be for us. He stepped out the front door and he just took it on and found a way. And isn't, we just, and I think of all the people in my world and the people I've helped through my own coaching, people who are scared to share that first story they've written or to share some of their own story in their personal work, despite being incredibly competent in their commercial work and having this great portfolio, it lacks their story. And I think that people find it incredibly hard to do what your dad did and step out the door and look for the opportunity and do something, anything.
Well, the benefit of my dad, there's two things I'm going to add to that. There's two things. My dad, since he started so young, it was all about survival. He had that benefit that most of us don't have because we either have a very cushy upbringing or we were very pampered or too well taken care of. My dad didn't have that. So he understood that this is survival. There is no easy way. You have to push through if you want to survive. And the second thing you brought up about confidence, when I speak with my clients, I don't say I'm going to help you build your clients. I'm going to help give you confidence or I'm going to help you give you confidence. What I explain is I'm going to help you reconnect with your confidence because I'm believing that we're all born confident. We're all born fearless. You watch a child, I mean, they go up and talk to everybody, they dance, they do things that most people are insecure to do. So we're all born with that. And over time, it could be at home or in school. Mostly I see in school, bullying, we have to fend for ourselves sometimes in school. We start reserving ourselves. We start, getting self-conscious and insecure about things. So the thing is, we already have that confidence in us. It's just a matter of reconnecting and pushing all that BS out of the way that we were taught and go back to that confidence that we were all born with. And I think we all should still have if we had the ability to.
And that leads us to the kind of I say the definition of confidence. I'm interested to hear your definition of confidence. The best one I ever heard was on this podcast, and it was Kimberly Wilson, who's a psychologist, and she described confidence as the brain's ability to predict a positive outcome. And I loved that so much because it dispelled the myth that confidence is innate. And you just said that perfectly, in the sense that we all have it. It's about momentum and proving to ourselves and build and steady gains and momentum. Is that something you'd go along with? And also, how would you define confidence?
I'm starting to believe it's just confidence versus the lack of insecurities. Going back to when we were young, the lack of insecurity, the lack of things can go wrong because we didn't know. It could be just ignorance of not of knowing that something could go wrong. And also the truth is there really is nothing that can happen. I mean, we imagine the worst case scenarios and chances of those things really happening, people bullying us or people picking, really doesn't happen. Maybe in school, but as an adult, it doesn't really happen as much. But as far as what I believe confidence is, and also from my dad, is that no matter what we choose to do, we'll figure it out. And that's really, I think that the people that I notice are most confident is that they'll just jump into a situation and no matter what comes up, they'll figure it out. So that's the confidence I think that really can help push us through is that no matter what happens, we're going to figure out a solution that might come up. So don't let point A stop me from achieving to point B, which we'll figure out, point C, and then we'll figure it out, and on and on and on. But if we stay stuck at point A, we'll never get to any of the other points. Nothing's going to go perfectly smooth. Sometimes it might, but it's not always going to go perfectly smooth. But if we have the self belief in ourselves, especially us creatives, that will come up with a solution when something comes up, we have a more of a chance that we're going to take that first step.
No, we really do. I love that. And it's like anything, isn't it? The classic example as an artist is the blank page. The start of every new project, I get the fear. I think, is this the one where I get found out? And it's like, despite 18 years of never missing a deadline, never letting a client down. And the moment and I always do it. And someone actually said to me, when do you tend to connect with a job? Now I've been working as an illustrator for 18 years among my other roles. And the way that I break that fear is simply to get a mark down. And I usually start with a splash of ink. So I just pick up my brush, I dip it in the pot, and I splash ink on the page. And the moment I like the way that looks, it just kills something about the blank page. And I can guarantee the next thing I mark down, it might not be great, but it will be all right. I can work with that. We'll do the next one. We'll do the next one. And then I'm in, and it's fine. But if I lie in bed the night before and think about the blank page, terrifying.
Yep. I've heard a lot of authors do that too when they sit down and they start to write. They just start writing your shopping list or anything just to get something going and get that momentum going. And then we just follow that momentum. And I think that's really what it is. I think is not taking that step is really guaranteed failure.
Yeah, and I have friends who are authors also, and they like to even they have other methods. They like to sit down and instead of just going straight into whatever task is on their to-do list that day, usually writing, they will pick up a book or they will watch something that makes them feel excited about their creativity, that makes them feel ready to go, so that they just hit the page with a different mindset altogether. And I love all that. I love how the ways that people get themselves into that flow.
I think we creatives have such, and I'm also believe that everyone in the world is a creative. Just some of us took it more seriously or made it part of our lives. But I really believe everyone has the ability. We're all born creative. We all have that creative energy in us. But just some of us decided to make it our career. And I think it's a blessing and also a curse because it's also one of those that we put so much of our feelings and so much of our soul into what we create that here comes the criticism, here's the feedback and the tear downs and all those things. But it's a job. Unless we want to create something that nobody can say anything about it or change it or make changes to it, we have to create our own work that we sponsor and we pay for ourselves. But if we're doing something for our client, it's really we're helping our client tell their story. And we have to realize that it's not about what we create and how we feel. It's about how our client's going to feel with what we deliver to them.
Yeah, yeah, and it's all in service of that, isn't it? We have to get ourselves into the right mindset to make that as good as it can be. How would you describe your kind of your innate self, your younger self? You know, you're having a dad that had suffered hardship in that way and fought to get what he got. How did that affect you as a kid? Were you a loud kid? Were you a quiet kid? How did that look?
Well, I had a split personality because my dad was strong. He was like trying to raise me to be strong, uh, independent, uh, hardworking, old school man's man kind of thinking, take care of the family, take care of the home. My mom was completely on the opposite. She loved spoiling me and poor Deyson because my dad was too tough. And I think my mom didn't realize that the reason my dad was that way is because he was trying to protect me. So when I grow up, I wouldn't be stuck. I wouldn't be, in a situation where I can't handle what comes upon us. So I had that split personality. So I always say it was depends. If my dad's there, I had this one personality where, shirt tucked in and proper because my dad was old school. But when my mom's there and my dad's not there, I was a whole different person. So I was more, just a whole different person. So I guess, but as I got older, the confidence that my dad taught me, and also my mom, she taught me to be kind and sweet and empathetic and things like that. So those things combined helped me a lot. I think it's helping me with people now when I work with my clients, especially with confidence. It's really hard, and I can't push my clients like that. I cannot. I can just guide them and help them build their confidence. And I think having my dad's confidence building techniques that he taught me and my mom's sympathetic ear helps me together. But fortunately, when I was younger, I started dancing. I was a performer for many years, and my job was party motivations like bar mitzvahs and weddings. And I was the one that had to go out and pull people up and get them on the dance floor and have a good time. So that
Ah,
was me. I was when I was younger, I was the outgoing one, the one that my friends liked the girl, and I would help them go talk to her, or I was that more outgoing guy. I never thought myself as confidence because I always saw other people I thought were a lot more confident than I was. But I realized that there is no ceiling when it comes to confidence. Even the most confident people you meet want to be more confident. There's still things that they're afraid or insecure about doing. So there is no ceiling.
very interesting. And now I start to see the thread running, and why you're so naturally suited to what you're doing today. And this is a great lesson, isn't it? Because and you'll probably see this in a lot of your clients, I imagine. So many people overlook the things that come the most naturally to them. Whether it's humor or whether it's quirks, as you mentioned before. We particularly in today's world when we're exposed to so many other examples of what it could be, we tend to follow that. We look at the lead, we look at what others who we perceive as being more confident or more successful are doing and fall into the trap of mimicry, which is, I think, one of the most destructive things you can do if you're trying to lead with creativity. Um, but I see this now in your story, and I see why you were so attuned to that. Is that something you'd go along with? And what's your take on that in terms of people not using their story or maybe not even being aware of their story or who they naturally are?
Before I answer that, you brought something up that made me think about too about my past. Something I always liked doing, especially in school, I was a class clown. I was always silly, trying to make people laugh. I love making people laugh, especially when class is very boring. And I realize I use that now when I help my clients. And it took me a little bit to figure this out, but when I make my clients laugh, especially when we're starting to get to know each other, I see a little hint of who they are. And I think that's really the way I work is I find the story, what is the story, and then I see who they are. That real person. And laughter is another thing that I learned. I don't know where I think my mom and dad, both of them on that. And when I make people laugh, it's like I see a little hint of their personality, of who they let their guard down. And I think that's another thing that helps me when I help my clients rediscover and reconnect with their confidence.
I was something of a class clown too. I was very much middle in terms of school. I could get on with the kids who had bravado, the tough kids, but I could also hang around with all the geeks and love doing so. So I was fine. I was a bit of an in-betweener. I would just drift from group to group because I didn't have too much of a sense of identity at that age. But mischief was always something that was there in me, and I loved it. And that would manifest through offensive drawings of teachers to make people in my class laugh because the lack of identity, or at least conscious identity, in on other fronts, meant that drawing was my way to crack people, to make them laugh, to be liked, which is obviously something we kind of biologically and comes from evolutionary traits. So I would do that, and I remember one instance, maybe the best piece of individual teaching I've ever been on the end of. I drew this one teacher, and we never really saw this teacher. He would teach people with additional needs in the school, so he had a sort of separate area. And I drew him. My friend took the drawing from me, ran off, and put it through his classroom window. I was, "Oh, no." So weeks go by with this thing sat on the window ledge behind the blinds. One day it disappears. So then I'm terrified, and I think, "Oh no, God, I'm going to get kicked out of school here. I'm gone." Calls me into his class. He says, "Look, I know it was you. I've looked at your GCSE artwork. It's good. I know you can draw." And then he left. And then he cut me loose, and he said, "Right, go. I'm going to think about this." So his punishment was leaving me terrified for a little while.
Mm.
When he called me back in, he said to me, "We're going to call it quits on this if you design me a poster for a talk I'm giving on dyslexia." And I couldn't. I stood there a moment. I said, "What? Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. That's a good deal. Yeah, well, I'll take it." And it was the smartest piece of teaching because he tapped into something that was natural, this mischief making, this antagonism. But he also saw that combined with the artwork had power. And that was his way of teaching a 14-year-old kid to just think about how they're using that power. And it stayed with me, and I got it immediately. I thought, oh, the clever bastard. I knew exactly what he was doing. And I guess I always share that story, but I just think it's a great example of how we can pull that from people. And as you said, when people laugh, they give something away. That's beautiful. And if you can latch onto that and start to mine that, that's when you really get to the core of someone.
You answered back that question because you made me realize about when we were in school, and that's great that you had a good teacher. I mean, that's awesome. I had a great teacher too that helped me go towards the video industry that I got into and kind of harness that gift. But thinking back and to answer the question you had before about why we limit ourselves, why do we hide what makes us special? I think there's different people in the world that we come across. Some people uplift us, some people encourage us and push us, like your teacher did, and they find what you have special and they kind of amplify it, and we feel better about what we do and what we create. And there are people, sadly, I think they were not taught right, that they like bringing down people to make themselves feel good. So when they see something special about this person, they'll do the opposite. Instead of encouraging it, they'll just start attacking it. And those are we call bullies or whatever we want to call them. And sadly, that's the people that we start hiding what's special is because that thing that made us special is what would have gotten good attention or would have made us what we could have become. And sadly, people sometimes see that, and instead of encouraging it, they rather bring it down so they can feel themselves superior or for whatever reason. That's one belief I have just because I see this being a reoccurring theme and realizing why people are hiding their silliness or their this person they feel comfortable doing with their family, but not when it comes to the public. And I think that's one thing is we come across somebody that has just squashed that part of us that made us special and made us unique.
Yes, I see it many, many times. And one of my closest friends, who's now a fantastic producer and electronic musician, does the music for this show, Dirty Freud. He had a real musical background in his family. His mum and his dad from different countries, big music fans, would fight for his allegiance in the music that they loved. So he had this panorama of reggae and punk and all these kind of influences growing up. And then it took one teacher when he was 14 to tell him that Gary Newman wasn't real music. And that broke him. That broke his confidence at that
Wow.
very tender age when we need somebody other than our parents, adult authority figures, to either validate or, as you say, they can go the other way and destroy because it's a very fragile time when we don't really have a sense of identity. For him, it turned out good because he went around the houses. He went through playwright, poetry, found success in all those areas. And by the time he did come back to music, because it was just in him, he then came with this lovely, untrained sensibility and found success in a whole different way. But not everybody gets back there. And I think that's to your point. I think we have great power as mentors, all of us, not just teachers. We're all teachers in some sense. We all have great power when it comes to young people because they're just so fragile at that age.
I had a client that I worked with, and strong guy, and he really wanted to get on camera, and he did. And we recorded a video, and afterwards he cried. Like I was like, wow, like I even got emotional too seeing this. And that's when I realized that this, what I'm doing, helping people, and other people have seen similar reactions. I have one client that after we finished, she just sat there in silence, looking at the ground, and she had this look of just like this weight taken off, like there's a whole new future ahead of her. That client that told you that started crying was just like, I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think I could do this. And I think it's the ability to be heard, to be able to tell their story with confidence. Like I think this new path, and it's not a new path, it's just something additional that I'm doing. It just makes me feel so good. Like it just seeing something that to me is simple. Just hit record and talk, start talking. But when someone overcomes that and seeing their happiness, their joy, their that emotional state, I think it's just wonderful. And I think it's something that should be done from a very young age to encourage others instead of bringing them down or making them feel bad about themselves. And it's sad that so many people have gone through that and have never been able to overcome it and never been able to reharness that gift that was given to them at a young age to take them a lot further than they can ever imagine.
Yes. Yeah, it's very sad, isn't it? The thought of a life lived with in a in boxes in a sense, because that is, I think I just get the most joy in my life when I'm able to be who I am and let those, let the silliness out and let the vulnerabilities out. And when you do, it has a way of a magnetic effect in terms of attracting people into your life who can help you move forward.
Hmm. There's this famous artist. Well, he's retired now. He did so well for himself. He's retired. And he was just always himself. And he always said, find your rat people. And that was his quote. His name is Paul Jarvis. And when he talked about finding his rat people, because he had pet rats. And the lesson he always gave people is like, be yourself because you're going to attract people that like yourself. And that's the kind of community you want to build. People are like-minded, people that understand and see each other with their similarities. And he had that. He put a little logo of a little rat. That was he called them his rat people. But just finding people that are okay if he cursed or the way he talked or whatever, he was just being himself. And he's like, that's the people I want to work with, is the people that I can be myself. And I think that is also a superpower because when we try to be something we're not, something that's very difficult, we're putting on a persona that's not who we feel comfortable being, but we think this is how we have to be successful. I think it keeps us from being more successful because if something comes natural and comfortable to us, it's just going to be easier to produce more videos, to produce more conferences or workshops or things like that. I knew this one gentleman that he would do a presentation and he was just funny and outgoing. And I'm like, wow. And then when I met him and I got to know him, he's like, it's so much work to do that. He's like, that's not who I am. Like every time I do an interview, it's like I feel so exhausted afterwards because he's very low key, he's very calm. And I'm like, well, you should just be low key and calm. That's nothing wrong with that. There's people that are going to gravitate to that because they're also low key and calm. But if you're putting out this energy that you're not comfortable and is draining you, you're not going to do as much work. You're going to be tired and exhausted, and you're only going to attract people that expect that out of you all the time. So you're limiting yourself. So my advice to everybody is be who you are. If you don't like who you are, because that happens, sometimes we're like, I don't like, I wish I was more outgoing, then change that. We have the ability to be who we want to be with enough work and building the habit. But once you find who you are and you're comfortable in that persona or that person who you are, just be that everywhere in your writings, in your talks, in your interviews, your conversations, how you talk to everybody in life will be so much easier instead of pretending something we're not.
Yeah, and so much, and so much more joyful. There's something that I just want to pick up from what you said that I think is really important there, and it's the energy. I was reading just this morning in the way these things always seem to have synchronicity. I was reading a book by Phil Stutz and Barry Michaels. I don't know if you're familiar with their work. They're psychotherapists, and there was a film recently by Phil Stutz about Phil Stutz made by Jonah Hill because he found his methods of therapy so profound that he wanted to share them with the people who might not have the Hollywood A-lister money to access this high level of therapy. And it had a profound effect on me, actually. They call it the tools that they use. And they were talking about the difference between physical energy, the energy that we have within us in our bodies, and spiritual energy, as in engaging with the world in a way that nourishes you and gives you, for want of a better term, young person energy, no matter how old you are. I use the example of Paul McCartney. I took my dad to see his first gig at the age of 70.
Wow.
Year before last to see Paul McCartney. He's obsessed with the Beatles, and it was incredible. But watching Paul McCartney on stage at 80 years of 80 years of age, was incredible. The energy of the guy, the spirit and the love of creativity that he has, I believe it has that kind of life energy that is different to the physical energy we have. Now, if you're living as someone who you're not, you're absolutely right. That's exhausting and that's taxing. That's when things like cynicism, self doubt, all of those things that hold us back come in, I think.
We also experience it when we create. Like if we're doing something we do not want to create, it's just time just starts slowing down. It just becomes more effort. But when we find something, a project we're working on that's just so much fun, time just flies. Like it's like, oh my gosh, like 8 hours went by. What happened? And that's like you're saying, energy. Where there's the physical energy, which we have a finite amount to. It gets to a
Mhm.
point that if we use up all our physical energy, we're going to be drained and we can't create anything. But then I believe what you're saying is the spiritual energy, which is like the creative, the fun. It just somehow more energy keeps coming out, or it actually energizes us and gives us more energy to keep going. So I think that's beautiful what you said there, and the difference. And we have to be careful what energy we're using up. If it's the physical energy, we have to really be careful with it because it's going to run out. And one thing I discovered a while ago that the thing that uses up the most amount of energy, from what I understand, is our brain. Like it just consumes so much energy that it can drain us really quick. That's why I'm starting to believe that's why big thinkers, people that think big and do big things, get paid more. It's because they're using up so much, they're consuming so much more energy. And I think to that effect that you were talking about earlier, physical energy and spiritual energy, find the things that bring us joy, find the things that bring us happiness, and we're just going to be endless energy.
Yeah, if you feel purpose, I've had this recently. If I, when I'm connected to my purpose and I'm making time to make the work I want to make, no matter how busy I am commercially, and it's not that I don't love my commercial work, I actually do for the most part. I'm very blessed in that regard, but that's because I've operated as who I am, and I'm aware of that. And I was very lucky to meet a group of friends when I was about 15 years old, who were just so open emotionally and supportive, and it changed everything. I went from fitting in at school to being heard, for being championed, and then I sort of rode into art college on this wave of confidence and just being me, no matter how bad the cheap leather jacket I had or the tracksuit bottoms I was still wearing, all of those things. I was fine about all of that. And I also attribute that partly to my family. My mum was always very big on, you be who you are. You go out there and you do what you want to do, what brings you joy. This life is short. You're going to work a lot of hours, choose with the heart, all of those kind of lessons. So somewhere in all that ecosystem, I was from an early age quite good at just operating and listening to my feelings. Then, so the last year or so, I've suffered quite a bit of anxiety, and I'm much better now, and I'm really kind of starting to know myself better to alleviate that. But in those times, the weight and the energy depletion, because I'm overthinking and because my brain is going, so that really correlates with what you said there about the consumption of energy in the brain. But now, having made more time for my emotional creativity and coming back to that, I'm reconnected with purpose, which brings that beautiful spiritual energy. So even if I flop into bed at night and I'm wiped out because I've had a busy day, my brain is still excited about what I'm doing the next morning. So I'll still wake up early and I'm still full of energy and ready to go again. And there's a profound difference between the two.
I think that's why it's so important, and something I also explain to my clients. This is really important that I explain to my clients. You have to find that why, that big, big why of why you're going to do this hard thing, why you're going to challenge yourself, why you're going to record videos and post them regularly. You don't even have to post them, just as long as you get into the habit of just building up that confidence. But if you have a big enough why, and everybody's why is different. Some people might be they want to earn more money, they want their business to be successful, or they want to help other people in the world. Like that one gentleman I told you about, he has or had or what he defines as very serious ADHD to a point that he paralyzed. But by him challenging himself, teaching his story, now he added one more layer that people can be part of. Is like, hey, I'm overcoming these difficulties. It makes their story even more interesting. So having that big enough why is what helps push us through. And I think one of the most beautiful ones is I want to help other people. I want to help people over. That's my thing now, why I do what I do, because I love seeing people overcome something that's really hard for them and seeing it happen in real time right in front of us. It's just beautiful. It's just like this blossoming and then seeing them afterwards continue. It's not easy. I know it's not easy, and I'm always there to help guide them as much as I can. But once they start getting into that role of doing it, it starts flowing into other areas. Their posts. And I had one client. Actually, this client came to me because they were spending like 8 hours producing these little 30 to 60-second video spots because doing what everybody else does, captions and graphics and b-roll and sound effects and all that zany stuff to get people's attention. And he's like, Deyson, I'm spending between 6 to 8 hours for this. It's just I can't do it. Can you please do it for me? I'm like, well, why don't we try something different? He's like, okay. He's like, take out the camera, record your message straight to the camera as if you're talking to somebody in person, and try for 3 weeks, see what kind of results you get. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, everybody was doing that. It's like, I know, but try this out and we'll see what happens. He started doing that. First, he loved it because now he went from 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours of producing because he's not an editor. He ran a real estate company or runs a real estate company. So it took him a lot more work. So he started doing this and just pull out the camera and just talk to whatever. He had a cool personality already. He said that the feedback he got was really good. But not only that, he said when he went to conventions or he went to meet people, people came up to him as if they already knew him because he was looking right into the camera and talking in people's subconscious. They felt like they talked to him because there was nothing distracting. There was nothing saying this is fake, this is edited, this is produced. It's more like, hey, this guy makes me laugh or whatever. People connect. So he said when he started going to these events and going meeting people, people came up to him as if they already knew him. So there could be different reasons to do these videos. So
That's
that was a story there.
That's magic. And also, I think another thing there is that you've removed that veneer of success, the polish that maybe intimidates some people or makes them feel inferior. Not that there's anything wrong with a polished or well produced. There's absolutely not. But
Mm.
when you see someone as on a pedestal, then they are far less likely to go over and strike a conversation. Whereas if it is a little less perfected and it's got that energy to it, then you're going to feel more, they're going to feel more accessible to you as well. So I love that.
There's a place for polished videos. I mean, I'm not going to downplay. There's a place for them, promoting a product, promoting a service, whatever.
Of course.
But as far as building trust, these videos, when you talk directly to the camera, people just connect with other people. They're not connecting with graphics, they're not connecting with all that. But if you're trying to build trust in you and your personal brand, doing these videos directly to the camera, just being and not only sharing all your success, but sharing your failures, your lessons. That's the most valuable stuff. It's like, hey, I just lost over $1 million because I made this really bad decision. That's what people want to hear. Like, what? Tell me more. I want to avoid losing
Yeah.
$1 million, or $10 or anything. So those are the things. And I tell people, it's like, don't just share your wins and your success. Share the struggles, the lessons, the heartaches you're going through right now at this moment. Like, oh, today I'm having such a hard day. I'm about to close on this new deal and I'm so nervous. But people like to hear that because it's like I'm building trust with you because this is a human being in front of me. I've seen this one gentleman. I haven't seen his videos in a while, but he's a financial advisor and he walks around the neighborhood with his dog on the beach or whatever, talking to the camera and answering people's questions. But it's like he has such a huge following. He has a very successful business, but he keeps it so down to earth. But people connect with him because they're like, okay, he's not hiding behind, like you said, the veneer. He's just being direct to the camera. Is it being honest or not? That's up to people to decide. But eventually, people start trusting, especially the more repetitive and the more honest you are. I always recommend people be honest, don't be fake. If you have failures, share them if you want to. Of course, never do anything you don't want to do, but that's where people connect the most. When you have what I call that Rocky moment, in the beginning of Rocky, he was having a hard time, but it was that overcoming that made that movie so great.
Yeah, 100, of course he was. So it goes back to what you said earlier about that action over inaction. That I've been guilty of not promoting my podcast for long stretches of time because I was busy and I couldn't face the time it would have taken for me to go and get the audiogram, to make the graphic, to do all the things. More recently, I've just done exactly what you've said. I've just picked up my camera and gone, I've been feeling a little anxious, and I'm talking about this through the lens of creativity. I know some of you guys might get on board with it. Here's a podcast that's come out this week. You can go and listen to it. And when it's just me talking, I always notice more engagement and people actually are likely to take that action. So you're right. It goes back to we trap ourselves with sometimes thinking overproducing, the need to overproduce and to finesse gets in the way of action.
There's this video that this gentleman put up, and he sells hair products, and he was putting videos all the time. Like, and it was videos about things he learned about his business. Uh, and his motto was always protect your peace. And he disappeared for a while, like months. And I'm like, oh, what happened? And then he came out with a video. And his video was straight up. He just came out saying, hey, I've been gone for a while. You probably haven't seen me for a while, but things just got really busy. And I had to stay with my motto, which was protect my peace. And these videos, producing or putting out these videos, I just had to protect my peace. I had to get off social media for a while. And I just like the honesty of that. And I think it's very important that people protect their peace, like what this gentleman says. Sometimes we do things that make us uncomfortable, and I always recommend try to realize why you're uncomfortable. Is it uncomfortable because it's something new? That could be a good thing. Sometimes doing new things and doing a new challenge can be a good thing. It can lead us to a direction that we have to and need to go to grow ourselves or to grow our business or to promote our products. But is it uncomfortable because it's something that you don't really enjoy? You don't find the fun in it. You don't see the purpose. Then that's something you have to really analyze and realize maybe it's not for you. But always protect your peace because all those things are going to come across the camera. People are going to notice it. So I always recommend when you do this, pay attention to why, because our insecurities can be masked as, oh, I have no interest in this. This is really not important. I don't have the right lights, like I was saying before. So we have to be really careful that it's not just our insecurity talking for us or our fears. And there's this one gentleman I listened to. He said that thinking is the devil, and I'm like, that's a weird thing to say. But most of our thinking is negative. It's mostly fear based. So we have to be really careful with our thinking, and we have to really listen to our gut. Does this, our thoughts will be like, don't do this video, over polish it. You don't have to do it. But our gut's like, I kind of want to. I want to see if I can do it, or I want to help my business. I have to do the hard things to get where I want to go. And if people are in that little fulcrum point, they want to build their confidence, but they don't want to put it on social media or anything, my advice is just to record the videos, and that's it. Don't post it. Just keep recording. Just get into that habit, because if later on you do want to go on social media, you have enough content ready to go, or B, you're building up a little bit of that confidence that you want to build anyway. And when you get called to do interviews or you get called to do something hard, it's a little easier for you because you unblocked something.
Yeah, just by going through the very act of committing to the action and seeing it through. I love that. Yeah, really, really, really simple but powerful. There's one more story I'm going to ask you to tell, and then I'm going to let you go. But it's one that you shared about Stoic philosophy and about wearing ridiculous clothes.
Yeah, I put a post about that. It was a story I read a while ago and it came to my head. I created this app. I like to develop apps too. It's something I always liked coding since I was really young. So I created this app that it lets me record my voice, and it kind of cleans up the grammar and finesses it for social media, just cleans it up because my forte is not writing. So I want people to enjoy my story, but in a better told way. So now I got this powerful tool where anywhere I go, I can just record whatever pops in my head, which I highly recommend people do. Get a voice memo app or whatever, And whenever an idea pops in your head that could be good for social media or a newsletter or whatever, just record it. It's a really cool thing to do and then transcribe it. And then you have your social media post. And this is an idea that popped in my head. It was something I read a while ago about a Stoic. I don't know who the Stoic was. I'm sure it's one of the great ones. And he purposely wore something that was ridiculed at the time that men didn't wear. I forget what it was, the color, the purple. I don't remember the exact details, but he purposely did that to experience ridicule. And he found out that first, most people didn't care. And then he realized that the people that did care or joked about it or said something, it really didn't hurt. It really didn't cause any physical harm. And once you absorb that and you're like, okay, it wasn't that big of a deal, it just you come out even stronger afterwards. And this is something that I learned through my own experience when I started dancing. When I first started dancing, I was very, even though I love to dance, but working for a dance company and dancing in front of people was not easy. But then I had my first job. It took me like 6 months to get my first job. But I had fun going to dance rehearsal because there was a lot of cool people. We went out to eat afterwards. We went out to the clubs. It was fun. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care if I don't get a job. I'm still having fun with all these people. But eventually, finally, someone gave me a job. Someone had pity on me, I guess, and they gave me the job. But I was so shy, to go up to people and socialize and cocktail hour and have conversations with them. But I realized over time, and then I started getting more jobs, that the sillier and the wackier you are, the more jobs I got. Like the more outgoing I got to a point that I had these little fire things that came out of your hands that threw out like this, like puffs of fire. Like I was doing all these crazy things because, it makes you memorable and people remember that. And I think that applies to life too. Like sometimes we hide those things that we think people are going to make fun of us or pick, but those are the things that make you memorable. Like me with the fire and doing crazy dance moves. And then I got to a point that I was so social. I was getting requested, and I was getting to a point that I was requested Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning. Like I had full weekends of just dancing. So I was dancing like 8 hours a day, doing these jobs. And people asked me, and people thought you had to be a really good dancer. And it's like, you really have to be the most outgoing one because the only time people really see you dance, like, at the parties, and anybody's been to a bar mitzvah, whenever the end of the party happens and okay, we're going to introduce all the dancers and they come out and they do like some performance that only happens for like 10 seconds when you show off your moves. But the rest of the night is you're socializing, pulling people in. Cocktail hour, I used to joke with people like, hey, how's everybody? You guys family, friends, or you guys snuck in for the free food or things like that, or keep drinking, makes my job easier. Joking around.
Yeah.
I learned, and based on that quote that we were just talking about, that story about the Stoic, is that sometimes we have to put ourselves out there and get comfortable with those things that we think people are going to make fun of us, because those are the things that could make us unique, special, memorable. Because if we're like everyone else and we're trying to, oh, this person did it like this, so I have to do it like this, you're not going to be memorable. You're going to be remembered as, oh, that person reminds you of this other person. Nobody wants to be remembered as that. People want to remember as like, oh, here's that guy that made me laugh, or here's that guy that threw fire out of his hands, or whatever, whatever your shtick might be. But just play with different things, have fun, and experiment, and put yourself out there. And I guess that's the lesson I want to give people, is that life is too short. Life is just too short to be hidden inside. And people say they want to stay in their comfort zone. And I actually am starting to believe that that comfort zone is actually very dangerous. It's not as comfortable as we think it is. Because if we stay there, we're going to limit ourselves in our future revenue stream or opportunities or love life or anything that could happen in life. I mean, I think my dad's teachings had helped me attained so much in my life. I worked with Apple. I worked for Discrete Logic. I mean, I became a dancer. I traveled all over. I'm working with big clients and I'm like pinching myself saying, I can't believe I'm working with these clients. And I think it's because of that confidence of that saying, I still feel the fear. I still get nervous. I'm like, oh, am I good enough? You get that, insecurity, that what do you call it? Imposter syndrome. I still get it, but it's like, I gotta push myself. And it's that little thing of just pushing yourself that's going to take you further. I mean, when I went to Spain to teach, that was for Discrete Logic. Back in the day, Discrete Logic was the biggest. when it came to visual effects. And they made the Inferno, Flame. Anybody that does visual effects knows these tools. So when they called me up to go teach in Spain because I spoke Spanish and they knew I knew this one tool that they were trying to promote, I'm not a teacher. I don't, this, I'm going to Spain for, speak Spanish. I had so much doubt because Spanish is not my main language. I speak it, but it's not, I feel confident in. But because I said, sure, let's do it. That's the first instinct to say, yeah, sure. And then I worry about it afterwards, but then once you finish, you see it's not that hard. But now that opened up more opportunities because now people say, hey, he can teach, he could be a demo artist. More jobs start opening up. But if I would have talked myself out of all these opportunities, I would have not able to take them on and achieve them and move forward in life. So I tell people being in the comfort zone could be the most dangerous place you can be in for your future, for your career, for your love life, for whatever you're trying to attain in life.
Yeah, because you just stop growing.
Oh yeah. And someone said that comfort is actually when we start aging. I'm like, you know what? There might be some truth to that.
I'd go with that. Absolutely. Well, this has been incredible, Deyson. I can't thank you enough for your time. I think it's going to be profoundly helpful for the people listening. It's certainly been helpful for me, as it always is, talking to you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ben. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. I love your work. I love your work. I think it has so much personality, it has so much style. It stands out. And I wish you continued success, especially now that you're going to be coaching. You're going to be helping other people. And I think that's wonderful. I think we need more great coaches like yourself that can teach us to be better version of ourselves. And I think it's awesome.
Thank you. That's very kind. And where can people connect with you? Where's the best place to go?
You can go to my website, Deyson.com. I was very fortunate. I was able to grab that domain. So it's Deyson, which is my name, Deyson.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Luckily, I have a very unique name, so it's Deyson Ortiz. You can Google me. And yeah, I love to help people. Just reach out, talk, whatever. I love meeting new people. I love meeting, especially creative people, just because every creative has such a unique world. And yeah, if anybody has any questions or anything, please reach out. I'd love to hear their story.
Brilliant. And quickly before we go, remind me of your dad's name.
My name's Jose.
Jose, yes, you did say. Well, I just wanted to say as well, that has really stayed with me, that story. And he's now one of a number of stories and characters that I bring to mind when I need that little kick up the arse. So yeah, cheers for sharing him.
Yeah, I want to write a book about him because he had so many lessons. I mean, he was tough. He was and when I was young, I was like, oh man, but I realized he did it for a reason. He was like military boot camp from a very young age, and I needed that. And I wish I had more. Now I'm like, man, I wish I had more of my dad's toughness and being there and correcting me and all that. But hey, at least I got as much as I did.
Thank you so much to Deyson Ortiz for taking the time to talk today about confidence, about your story, about moving forward on your terms with a proud, confident voice. I almost said proud loud there, but it's not about being loud. It's about doing it your way. Doesn't matter where you sit on that old introversion, extroversion spectrum, whether you're feeling sensitive, whether you're feeling gregarious and fired up, because I don't know about you, but I flip and I flop through all those emotions on any given day. So you have to do it your way. That's sympathetic to you. That's the only way. Anyway, big thank you to the supporters of the show, founding sponsor Illustration X, here since day one, doing amazing work in our creative industry, supporting everyone and also representing the world's best illustrators and animators and motion graphics people and artists, and you can check all of them out at illustrationx.com. Paradiso Institute for their incredible work that is kicking off as we speak, the Paradiso Institute. You can see it at paradisoinstitute.org. Take a look at it, see what they're up to. They're pushing for bolder creative leadership, and they're helping people do that through coaching, through festivals, through get-togethers and events and all the rest of it. Foilco, incredible organisation, ethically sound foiling for your book covers. The range these guys have in their index is absolutely spectacular. I used it on my crowdfunding campaign. I did these beautiful prints that said the creative type over the book cover artwork that I was crowdfunding, The Creative Condition, my second book. And they kindly supported me on that one and provided this beautiful kind of rainbow sparkled iridescent foil. It was stunning. And they did that for free. They supported the cause, and now they're supporting this show. They're an amazing bunch of people. I think the biggest range of hot stamping foils in the world, if I'm not mistaken. Family-run business in the northwest of England. Check them out, foilco.com. And last but not least, the Ukrainian Institute, supporting the brave and bold Ukrainian creative community in this horrific time of war, ui.org.ua. Thank you for listening, guys. Please do support. Please do subscribe, rate, review the show. Tell a friend. Just tell a friend. Pass it on. If you like anything about this conversation with Deyson today, I would appreciate it if you just said to someone, you should check it out. It might be good for you. That's what helps podcasts grow. They're decentralized in the main. That's what mine is. It's very independent. It's very pirate. It's very rough around the edges. I love doing it. I want to support creativity and elevate it in our society, and I hope you can help me do that with those steps. If you want some personal one-to-one coaching, get in touch. You can also get in touch with today's guest, Deyson.com, for his confidence coaching. I work with you on story coaching on the pit stop. I help you see the wood for the trees. I help you find direction moving forward and align you with your best story. thecreativecondition.com. That's enough from me, guys. Thank you for listening. It's been beautiful. I hope you loved today's chat. Take care. Stay creative and have an awesome week.